You're okay. I love those. Wish I knew how to read them.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see you. Glad you're with. Yes. That's my favorite. That one was aggressive, but I liked it. Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for waking us up. We would love for you to rise or stand as you're able and begin by singing with us. To that refuge clinging, since Christ is Lord of heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? Amen. Beautiful. You can have a seat.
Good morning, everyone. It's so good to be with you on this, I love this weather, brisk October Sunday morning. My name's Jeremy. I'm the pastor here of the Grove Cottage Grove, and we are a new church that exists to grow goodness. So whether you're in the room with us today or you're watching online while you have the Vikings game on, or you're in it, or you're interacting with us somehow during the week, we hope that any of those interactions are helping to provide some nurturing, healing, and wholeness in your life. Just want to turn your attention to a couple things as we get started this morning. Hopefully you received one of these worship handouts on the way in. The most important thing up front is to know, if you turn it and you look at the right-hand side, on the inside, we have information about our kids ministry, and we also have a slide with all of our kids stuff. Kids are highly valued members of this community, and we try to create the physical space and the programming space even for them to feel that. So we have a nursery that is available for ages up to age 3. And then we have Grove Kids, which we'll release in a few minutes after we have Connection Point and sing them out. We also have spaces in the worship center if they prefer to be in here. We have stuff in the backs of the chairs and the pews. We have the quiet wiggle space over here. We have books in the back for them to be able to freely move about the cabin and find their space in here too. The one thing that we ask is that if this is their first time this fall, not necessarily the first time ever, but first time this fall for them to be going to any of the programs out there, that they fill out their registration. You can scan this QR code, or there is a physical paper in the back for you to be able to fill out, one, so we can know who they are, but then if there are any medical concerns or allergies or something that we need to be aware of, that we're able to take care of those as well. That is it for upfront announcements. So at this point, we get to move into the part of the service which we call Connection Point. Connection Point is your opportunity to be connecting with people around you, because building meaningful relationships, even through forced interaction, is incredibly important. And in order to facilitate that a little bit and lower the bar a little bit for folks, we provide a discussion question every week to make it a little bit easier to have some of those forced interactions. A lot of times we go with something really light, like what's your favorite color, or what's your favorite thing to do in fall? Today is going to be a little bit of a heavier type of service, and so we are going with a little bit heavier type of question, but you can make it a little bit lighter if you want. So the Connection Point question today is, what major world-changing event shaped you? Yeah, maybe that's your response. I don't know. Perhaps there was this big event in our country and in our world that as you look back on that, you're like, I was a different person with a different worldview after that type of event. Or it might have been world-changing for you, but not for other people. Maybe it was the birth of a child, the death of a parent, a storm, natural disaster that went through, something like that. Or, you know what, if you have something else that you want to talk to people about, go ahead and use that. This is at least a question prompt that you're free to use or not use. So why don't you stand up, find someone near you you don't know very well, introduce yourself, discuss this question, and we'll reconvene in a couple minutes.
Okay, you can finish up your conversations. Okay, kids, if you're going to Grove Kids today, we will sing you out on your way. Jesus loves the little children, all the children of the world. Every color, shape, and type, they are precious in His sight. Jesus loves the little children of the world. Actually, you all can have a seat.
All right, I will turn your attention once again to the worship handout, or as we learned from some of our kids 2 weeks ago, the boring adult paper. So if you open it up, it has some of the most important information about the church, why we exist, how to give to make sure that we are able to continue to exist. Also on the inside is the worship insert, which allows you to let us know you're here, to update your contact information, to request information about any specific things that we have going on, for you to submit a prayer request so that we can be joining you and praying about things that are going on in your life. If you do fill this out, you can drop it in the basket at the back of the worship center on your way out. Then on the back, we have our 3 announcements. These are the 3 things that we have been keying in on this fall. The first one is the stewardship campaign. So there are 3 times a year, only 3 times a year. I mean, we talk about giving every single week, but there are only 3 times a year that we do campaigns here at the Grove, and they are very distinct things that we are looking to raise funds for. So the first thing is our Being the Hope campaign, which happens during Lent, so the season leading up to Easter. And the Being the Hope campaign is raising funds to support ministries outside of the local church that are doing social good in our neighborhoods, in our country, and across the world. Then during the summer, we have our Property Improvement campaign, which is helping to provide funds to be able to do things around the property that are outside of the limits of our operating budget. And then during the fall, as we kick off the fall, September into October, we have the Stewardship campaign. And you can think about the Stewardship campaign being like our annual financial plan as a church that includes our operating budget. So all of those other things like staffing and programming and keeping the lights on and the heat going during the winter, the things that allow us to do what we do and that you experience on a Sunday morning or throughout the week. The Stewardship campaign not only allows us as a church to be able to make those plans based on the pledges coming in from all of you, but we view this also as an opportunity for you as households to be able to make that plan for yourself in the year ahead. So we have 4 different goals that we have been highlighting, and we're giving you updates on every single week. Our goals are around total pledges. We're looking for 40 total pledges. So far, we have 11. We're looking for 10 new pledges, people who have never pledged before. We have 2 so far. We're looking for 17 people who are saying, I've pledged before, but now this year is an opportunity for me to increase my pledge and increase the impact that it's having on the church. We already have 4 who have increased their pledges, and then 10 people or 10 households who are setting up online giving for the first time, and we already have 2 households that have made those pledges. So this campaign is continuing to go on. By next Sunday, we'd love to be able to not necessarily put a bow on it, but be able to say, hey, this is the end of our series and the end of our campaign. You're willing, or you're able to make a commitment at any point, but we're really wanting to come here next week to be able to celebrate it together, what those numbers are that we were able to achieve. So if you have questions about that, if you're wondering more about it, or if you are in the spot where you're ready to make a pledge today, you can scan the QR code on here or up here. and you can read more about it or make your pledge right there. The second announcement is the pop-up pumpkin patch. 6 days away, we're going to have, we don't know how many people we're going to have. Last year we had almost 2,000 people here on our property for this event, and that takes a lot of person power to be able to pull it off. We already have a bunch of volunteers who are signed up, but we're still looking for some more for the day of, especially around things like the welcome tables. And Diana, there was one more that I didn't add yet. What was it? Parking. We need help with parking because, believe it or not, our parking lot does not accommodate that very well. So if you are available during the day on Saturday, if you're available early in the day, we need help getting the pumpkins all situated out there. Fortunately, they're getting delivered that morning, so we don't have to fill them in here on Thursday and then have another crew come on Saturday to move them out. But if you're available in the morning, you can help with pumpkins. If you're available earlier in the day, you can help with setup. If you're available during the event, 2 to 5 p.m., you can help with a handful of things during the event. Or if you're available 5 p.m. and on to help clean up, we will take any and all of that help. So again, if you want to see some of those positions or sign up now to get the information that you need to volunteer on Saturday, you can scan that QR code. And then the last thing is around Grove Groups. Grove Groups are the #1 place to learn, grow, and build meaningful relationships. Grove Groups are the way of breaking down our community to smaller groups where we can get to know each other really well and build those meaningful relationships that you just cannot do in an hour on a Sunday morning. These can take many different shapes as well. So we're going to have a group that is for people who are very new to the Grove to be able to build those relationships for the first time. But it can also be a group like it was the Pokemon group idea, right? That there are a group of kids here at the church who love Pokemon, and some of their parents do as well, and that might be a group. There was an idea of a knitting group, potentially. People who... Crafting, excuse me. It could be knitting. It could be something else. Crafting group. Again, like these can take on many different forms. It doesn't necessarily have to be we're doing hardcore Bible study together. It's figuring out ways to gather a smaller group of people around something where you can build meaningful relationships with one another. So if you want to learn more or if you're ready to sign up, you can scan the QR code again, and it'll bring you to the website where you can do all of that. Okay. We're going to do a hard pivot now. You ready? Tomorrow, today is October 6th. Tomorrow, if you are familiar with the dates, October 7th, we are 1 year out from the events of October 7th that happened in Israel. 2,500 people were killed by Hamas terrorists. There were over 200 hostages that were taken from Israel into Gaza. There remain 100-some. It's thought that many of those people are probably not still alive after a year. It's terrible, right? We also have the events that have transpired since then as a result of what happened on that day. And we have had we've had the response from Israel going into Gaza, which has amounted not in 2,500 deaths, but in something like 40-ish thousand, and that might be a low number. And then on top of that, if it can get any worse from there, just in the last couple weeks, it seems like there's a whole new front of this war opening up in the northern part of Israel into Lebanon to try to take care of Hezbollah. And there's been massive civilian death along with that as well that we're just like beginning to feel the impacts of. And then there's everything that might come after this. So we have this day of October 7th where terrible things happened. We had the direct aftermath of Gaza, and now we have this new front opening in Lebanon and wherever that might lead. I recently learned about this thing on Reddit called Am I the Curse Word? Some of you apparently are familiar with this. It's a place where you can share stories of like something that's going on in your life, and you get the collective response of, Am I the bad person in this situation, or is the other person the bad person in this situation? And people can respond, yeah, you're the bad person, or no, they're the bad person. But there's also a way of responding to this that is called ESH. I'm looking what the younger kids in the room. Everyone sucks here. Like, there's no good person in this situation. And so as we think about October 7th and everything that has come since then and what we're living in now and might be coming ahead of us, everything sucks here. And I think it's okay for us to acknowledge that and for us to like sit in that and to feel in some ways incapable of being able to do anything about it. And so we're creating some of that space this morning to acknowledge that and also to say there is one thing we can do about it. We can pray about it. However you think about prayer and how effective it is, there's this story that Jesus tells where someone's possessed by demons and his disciples are trying to help out. They're trying to cure him, and Jesus prays over him, and the demons leave. And his disciples are like, what just happened here? And Jesus is like, some demons only come out through prayer. We are not going to cause the end of this war sitting here in Cottage Grove, the 70 of us or whoever is in this room. We are not going to be able to impact that through our direct action. But if nothing else, we can pray about it. We can acknowledge that we care and acknowledge that God cares about it as well. So with that in mind, I'm going to lead us in a prayer. This was a prayer that we read just over a year ago last year. It's a prayer for peace in Israel and Palestine from Rose Marie Berger. So will you pray with me? I'm going to light these candles as we do this. One for the October 7th victims, one for the hostages who are still in Gaza, one for the people of Gaza, and one for the people of Lebanon. God of comfort, send your Spirit to encompass all those whose lives are torn apart by violence and death in Israel and Palestine. You are the advocate of the oppressed and the one whose eye is on the sparrow. Let arms reach out in healing rather than aggression. Let hearts mourn rather than militarize. God of justice, give strength to those whose long work for a just peace might seem fruitless now. Strengthen our resolve. Do not let them feel alone. Show us how to support their work and bolster their courage. Guide religious leaders to model unity and reconciliation across lines of division. Guide political leaders to listen with their hearts as they seek peace and pursue it. Help all people choose the righteous path of just peace and disavow violence. God of love, we lift up Palestine and Israel, and now Lebanon, its people, its land, its creatures. War is a monster that consumes everything in its path. Peace is a gift shared at meals of memory with Christians, Muslims, and Jews. Let us burn incense not children. Let us break bread, not bodies. Let us plant olive groves, not cemeteries. Beg for love and compassion to prevail on all your holy mountains. God of hope, we lift up the cities of the region, Gaza City and Tel Aviv and Beirut, Ramallah and Ashkelon, Deir al-Balah and Sderot, so long divided yet so filled with life and creativity. Come again to breathe peace on your peoples. that all may recognize you. God of mercy, even now work on the hearts of combatants to choose life over death, reconciliation over retaliation, restoration over destruction. Help us resist anti-Semitism in all its forms, especially in our churches. All people, Israelis and Palestinians, deserve to live in peace and unafraid with a right to determine their future together. God of nations, let not one more child or elder be sacrificed on altars of political expediency. Keep safe all people from unjust leaders who would exploit vulnerability for their own distorted ends. Give wise discernment to those making decisions to pursue peace. Provide them insight into fostering well-being, freedom, and thriving for all. Teach all of us to resolve injustices with righteousness, not rockets. Guard our hearts against retaliation and give us hearts for love alone. Strengthen our faith in you, O God of all flesh, even when we don't have clear answers, so that we may still offer ourselves nonviolently for the cause of peace. Amen.
You are the God of the wrong made right. You are the darkness turned to light. Light. You are the God of the kingdom come. The kingdom reigns with boundless love. Love. And all comes crashing down around us. We know you rebuild. All seems lost and courage faded. Make us steadfast still. You are the God of the wardrobe peace. You take our grief and give us dancing. You are the God of a cold, dark night, holding us till all is right. All comes crashing down around us. We know you'll rebuild. All seems lost and courage In life and death, we cling to you. You join us on this one.
All this pain, I wonder if I'll ever find a way. I wonder if my life could really change.
All right, let's lighten the mood a little bit. Who wants to talk about math? So we are nearing the end of this series that we started back at the beginning of September, which we've called God's Math. We've been saying that this is the kingdom arithmetic by which we grow in love of God and neighbor, reach new people, and help heal a broken world. And last week, I had some of you raise your hands and say how many people like math, find it fun, and a surprising number of you raised your hands. And like, okay, up until this point, I could kind of get on board with that, because to this point, it's been like simple math that we have been talking about. So we had addition, started with addition, which is how we grow and our churches grow and our community grows and the love of God and neighbor grow by one-to-one interaction slowly over time. Then we moved on to subtraction. We said that sometimes subtraction is actually a positive because subtraction is about humility and like giving of ourselves. Then we moved on to division, where we said we do this by sharing the load. We divide the work amongst ourselves, and we're able to accomplish more when we divide the work. And then last week, a little bit more complicated, but still okay, was multiplication, which is recognizing what we have been given and then figuring out how can we pay it forward? How can we multiply the impact of what we've been given going forward? All of that I could get on board with. Today we're talking about calculus. How many of you like calculus? We got three in the room. Okay. I like even had a difficult time trying to define what calculus is. So I went to the New Oxford American Dictionary, and this is the definition of calculus: the branch of mathematics that deals with finding the finding and properties of derivatives and integrals of functions by methods originally based on the summation of infinitesimal differences. Who's more confused? I was more confused reading this. So the way that I want us to think about calculus today is not that definition, but a way of understanding the impact that even slightly changing variables can have. Does that make sense? It's probably not true to actual calculus, but the idea that there can be an impact, and by changing the variables, it can also change the impact in like an ongoing manner. Another way for you maybe to visualize what I mean by this is where the word calculus comes from. So calculus is actually from the word in Latin for pebble. The reasoning is because in the ancient Roman world, the Roman people would do their mathematical equations by putting small rocks out on a counting table, and then they would do like their math equations by moving the different pebbles around, so they could literally lay it out before them and see how changing the numbers here and changing the numbers here would have a downstream impact. Does that make sense? So I want us to kind of have that visual in mind when we're talking about calculus today. And when we talk about calculus in that way, Jesus was like a master of that type of calculus. It's not that he was doing these crazy mathematical equations, but he was constantly trying to figure out, how do I help people to visualize the impact that they can have by subtly changing the variables in their life? So one of the things that he was constantly talking about was the kingdom. Sometimes it's called the kingdom of God or the kingdom of heaven, but it was kind of the summation of God's dream for the world. And so those could be really heady ideas, right? But instead of keeping them way up here where it's difficult to understand, he told these stories that used everyday examples to kind of try to lay it out in front of people so they could see the pebbles. They could see what the kingdom impact could be if they just changed the variables on the table a little bit. So today's story is that type of story, and it takes it in even a more literal way. This story for today comes from Luke chapter 14, one of the 4 biographies about the life of Jesus. Now, large crowds were accompanying Jesus, and turning to them, he said, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate their own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and even their own life, they cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry their own cross and follow me cannot be my disciple." Good start, Jesus. For which of you, wanting to build a tower, does not sit down first and compute the cost to see if they have enough money to complete it? Otherwise, when they have laid a foundation and are not able to finish the tower, all who see it will begin to make fun of them. They will say, this person began to build and was not able to finish. Or, what king going out to confront another king in battle will not sit down first, determine whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he cannot succeed, he will send a representative while the other is still a long way off and ask for terms of peace. In the same way, therefore, not one of you can be my disciple if they do not renounce all their possessions. So to set the scene a little bit, Jesus has been, for his first 3 years of public ministry, basically staying in his backwater hometown in northern Israel. That's where he's been doing almost all of his work and teaching and preaching and healing people. And now he's on his way to Jerusalem. So he's moving from small town to big city. And as he's doing that, as he is making his way there, his long journey, people are hearing about him and his message and what he's been doing. And so as he moves, his crowd grows. More and more people are interested in what he is saying and doing. And that's great, right? More is more. That's a good thing. You want to grow your crowd, correct? Jesus apparently doesn't have that mindset. He has a different type of mindset than some maybe American megachurch pastors, where it's like you want to grow your crowd as big as possible by keeping it shallow as possible, by not asking for too much from people, by not getting too controversial or too political or anything, because you want to have the biggest crowds as possible. It's not that Jesus didn't want more and more people to follow him and follow his way of life in the world, but he wanted them to be able to see the pebbles out in front of them, to see the variables that were on the table, and to know what the impact was going to be, not only on their life, but on the world. And so we can ask, well, what were the variables that Jesus was talking about? Let me go back to those again. If anyone comes to me and does not hate their own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and even their own life, they cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry their own cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. In the same way, therefore, not one of you can be my disciple if they do not renounce all their possessions. Those are the variables on the table. If this were to be an image of a person, and if there were a sound effect that went along with what Jesus just said, it would be Debbie Downer from SNL, and the sound effect after hearing what Jesus just said is wah, wah. Now, I want to note that I think that Jesus is mostly speaking in hyperbole here. That he is not suggesting that anyone who is going to follow him has to end up hating everyone in their life that they love, and that they have to give up absolutely everything, all of their possessions, in order to follow him, nor to be ready for public execution by the state. Okay, I think that he's speaking in hyperbole here, but he's speaking in these words to drive home the point that living out God's dream for the world of love and grace and generosity and inclusion, that's going to be costly. Moving those pebbles around on the table is going to have an impact on their life and their world. So it's almost as if he's saying, listen, I'm not trying to be a bummer. Not trying to be a bummer here, but here's what you need to know. Here's what you need to see how this is headed. Like an architect who's putting up a building and doesn't think through how they're going to finish it, you need to think through how it's going to finish and whether you're in on this. Like a king who's about to go to war, you need to think through whether you're able to fulfill this or not, because if not, now's your time to jump off ship. This is going to be costly. And the impact is not just on the individual, but the impact is also on what that individual might be able to contribute to downstream. Because love and grace and generosity and inclusion, the impact of those types of things and a community that is living out those types of things can be profound. Any fans of The Good Place, the show The Good Place? There's not enough of you in this room. More of you like math than The Good Place. You need to check out The Good Place, okay? The Good Place is one of my favorite shows ever. It's a sitcom, but it includes moral philosophy. Somehow it's able to weave those things in together. If you're not familiar with it, the idea of The Good Place is that when people die, they get sorted between a good place and a bad place. They end up in one of these two places. And the good place is marked by things like flying lessons or frozen yogurt that tastes like a full cell phone battery. You got that feeling? You can eat frozen yogurt in the good place that tastes like that. Then there's the bad place, which has things like bees with teeth and a room that is really hot, but it increases by a degree every time you think about how hot it is. Okay? So that's good place and bad place. How do you know whether you're going to the good place or the bad place? You don't actually know, but there are accountants in the afterlife who are following every single thing that you do and giving you points or taking away points, and at your death, there's a final calculation that is put into play, and if you've earned enough points, you go to the good place, and if you haven't earned enough points, you go to the bad place. Not exactly heaven or hell, right? But I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but at one point, the main characters of the show, figure out that that's what's going on. And they figure out that they can have an impact on the people who are living on earth now. So once they see, here are the variables that are in play. Here are the things that we can do or have the people on earth do. And here's the impact that they can have. Here is the result that they can have. They do everything within their power to impact those variables in order to have that outcome. Make sense? Let me give you a bad outcome that I'm all too familiar with. 8 in 10 churches in the United States, 8 in 10 new churches in the United States close. Most of them within the first 18 months of starting. That is not a desirable outcome, I would argue, right? However, there are a lot of different variables that can come into play that can impact that. Some start too quickly, some aren't engaging with their community at all. But one of them, probably the biggest one, is around funding. Lack of funding. That over time, they're either too reliant on outside funding or they're not able to grow their congregation enough and grow their generosity enough to be able to be fully self-sustaining going forward. Some of you in this room, including myself, have been a part of a new church start that did not succeed. Right? That's a not great outcome. I would also argue that churches like ours have a smaller denominator that are really trying to this love and grace and generosity and inclusion. We have a smaller denominator, which probably makes that number of closures even larger. Growing a faith community that looks like that is not easy. And in many ways, it is costly. It can be financially costly. It can be relationally costly. I know some of you in this room, from being a part of this church, have had to deal with you've had to deal with relational issues. We'll just leave it at that. You know who I'm talking to, right? However, that being said, there are variables. This does not have to be the outcome. We are responsible for how those pebbles are being moved around on the board. We can do that in such a way that leads to an impact not only on our lives as individuals, not only on this church, but on this larger community as well. So what I would like us to think through is how those variables are on the board, how we as individuals and as a church can think through those, but also more importantly, think about how impacting those variables, how moving those pebbles around on the board can have the impact. What is that impact? Well, that impact can look like creating a community for people who had to leave the church or never felt welcome in the first place and now have found that place to belong. You might consider the impact on kids who don't have to relearn all of this stuff that they were taught growing up, don't have to relearn that, yeah, God actually loves them. Consider as well about people who will never become a part of this church, might never even attend on a Sunday morning, but are nevertheless benefiting from the social good that we are doing in this community. So with that in mind, that is the type of calculus that I can get behind, that I can hold my hand up to and say that is something that excites me and that I hope it excites you as well. May that be so.
Before we go today, let's rise and sing this old hymn together, reminding us that through all the highs and all the lows, God is faithfully with us through it all. Great is thy faithfulness, O God, Creator. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassions, they fail not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Great is thy faithfulness. Great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hand hath provided. Great is thy faithfulness, Lord, unto summer and winter and springtime and harvest, sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join with all nature
One last time, going to refer to the back of this boring adult paper. Making direct connections to what we've been talking about today. The stewardship campaign, again, we'd love to have pledges in by next Sunday so we can collectively celebrate them together. If you have not yet pledged, it's probable that you have a giving history with us, that you got a thing in the mail this last week. And one of the things that does is show, like, this is the impact that you can have. So I'd encourage you to check that out. Go to the webpage if you need to. And if you consider this your church home, consider to make a pledge to help us meet our goals. The other thing about impact and the variables that are in play is the pop-up pumpkin patch. Again, these are 2,000 people that will probably never be a part of our church, but that we can contribute to their lives. If you are able in any capacity to volunteer that day, we would love your help. Hey, it was so good to be with you this morning. We cried, we laughed, and we still got you out in time to watch the fourth quarter of the Vikings game. So with that, we won't belabor the point anymore. You're already standing. I'll have you extend your hands to receive this blessing. As we go, may we consider the cost of following the way of Jesus, but also the impact that love and grace and generosity and inclusion can have on ourselves and others. May that be so.